Welcome to the Thrive With Us podcast. I almost forgot the name. With Nicole Jones, Nick Jones. Today,
sponsored by Ralph's Crispy Crunchy Chicken. Forgot about that.
Ralph's Crispy Crunchy Chicken. Today, we're going to be talking about Nicole's story. So, let's have some fun and
let's go
make
deep.
Nicole uncomfortable.
It's okay. I have my little stress car here. My Thrive Automotive stress car.
Gotta get some jam in. Like the fade out?
I think it's excessive. Let's end this.
You're a jerk. Anywho, welcome everybody. We are back live from San Francisco.
Episode 3, right? 3.5, I should say, because we did a 0.5.
We're just going to call it 3.
Yeah.
Today,
we have a new plant here, as you can see. The other one is very droopy and sad, so I had to swap it out.
And it's half dead. Yeah. Today, we're going to be talking about Nicole's story. Just to give you a little insight of where we came from, you know. I think it's easy to see people and not be able to relate to them because we think maybe their story was different than ours, but I think we all have a lot of the same story.
They had it easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I always struggled with.
Must be nice.
Whenever
I
see someone like, oh, they had it easy.
Always.
They don't know what it's like.
No, they didn't have to do what I had to do.
Yeah.
It's usually worse. So as I've grown older, I've realized that if anyone's going to have any level of success or what I would consider success, they went through some shit. Mm-hmm. It is.
And
it's
the more
gift.
you learn about other people's stories, the more, I guess, like, the bigger that your mind can get, and, like, the more you realize that all of your thoughts in your head are just limited beliefs as to what's holding you back. It's not actually, like, your external environment. It's more of, like, your internal belief system.
And now, like, that is exactly what that is, right? When you go, oh, they didn't have to do blank. That's yourself protecting yourself. It's yourself giving you
an excuse.
It's an excuse. Yeah. It's victim mentality. Oh, they didn't do this. They didn't have this. That's just you sabotaging yourself, right? I love that. So powerful.
Yeah, true.
Anywho,
that.
So, Nicole.
Yes. Hello.
I know your story.
I'm Nicole.
But nobody else does. Let's put it on the airwaves. So let's start from, I mean, everyone knows you were born, right? But where were you born?
I was born in Hanford, 1992. Hanford's near Fresno. It's like kind of central-ish California. Little tiny dairy town. It smelled of cow manure, but
it does smell like crap.
Yeah.
I've been there. It very much stinks.
My dad lived there. His whole side of the family lives in Hanford. Most of the family. My mom's she was born in Korea, South Korea, lived there till she was like 17, moved to the United States. I honestly don't know all the details as to, what happened.
I don't know any of my family lineage either. Like nothing. But
she lived in Reno, but then like, I don't know what brought her to Hanford. She met my dad at a grocery store and then boom, here I am. So I was the third child, out of 3 girls. And when I was about 5 or 6 years old, we moved to Redding. My dad was a traveling salesman. He worked for Pacesetter window sales and got transferred from Hanford to Redding. And that's pretty much what brought us to Redding. I guess the next big core memory was, when you're a kid, you don't realize all the things that kind of the seriousness of the things that were happening.
Everything's fun when you're a child.
Yeah, and you
Trauma's
just
fun.
Know your own reality, and you don't really know of anything else. And so I just remember I was always a really insecure kid. I was always wanting to be invisible, quiet. I barely talked. And when I was around 12 years old, my parents ended up splitting up. My mom moved out. It was kind of like weird because we always talk about this, how it was like, how'd you feel? Like, and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't remember like really on the outside being affected by it. I definitely didn't want her to leave, but it wasn't like, I don't remember having this big like wave of emotion, on the outside where it like, affected me.
Like you hear some people's story and it's like, when my parents got divorced, everything changed. Like, that's what I was curious
I mean, and everything
about.
did change, but I didn't have the awareness, I guess, right, on how it was affecting me in the moment. And definitely a lot of internal things, you know, that was affected by that. But on the outside, I don't remember like sobbing or being like, stop, come back. You know, it wasn't like any of that.
It wasn't like this life. Because you hear like, I don't know if I'm sure you've watched the show Intervention. I know I have. And it's always like, my parents were divorced when I was 16. I'm not making light of that. But like, and then I just went off the deep end. And you're always just like, yeah, I don't know. It wasn't a huge deal. Like, I'm always just a little confused by that.
Yeah. And it was, my mom was pretty checked out. She was a stay-at-home mom in the very beginning, and she definitely had a lot of her own demons that she was fighting. She was very physical with us, more my middle sister than the rest of us. But it was like the spanking generation, but then the spanking kind of turned into, you know, more than it should have been.
I think you're really good at making light of pretty deep stuff.
Yeah.
But because I got spanked, but it was like, it didn't hurt. It was just like, hey, you're an idiot.
Yeah, and that was my dad. My dad like spanked, but it was with his hand, and it was just like scary, but it didn't hurt. But my mom, it was like, I'm inflicting pain on you with this really long shoehorn, you know, because she was releasing her aggression. So it's very different than like, I'm gonna spank you to like show you, or to like try to teach you a lesson, you know?
Yeah, I think it was more than that.
And like to scare you.
I think you're so good at having grace for others, and I love it.
Yeah, and I've been on a whole journey, right, of like, well, anyway, yeah, we'll get into that later, but like I've been on a whole journey of like feeling a certain way about my parents, and then now I'm just like, I'm so grateful for everything that they've done for me and my sisters, and like and honestly, like the mindset shift of everything that's happened. Everything that has happened for me, not to me, and that took a really long time to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, when you tell me stuff about, and I'm going to dig into it a little bit, but when you tell me stuff about your childhood, I'm always like, fuck. And I mean, everybody has trauma in their childhood, right? Like I could go over all the bad things that happened to me, and you could go over the bad stuff that happens to you, but I think what you're touching on is that there's always someone who's had it worse. And the reason you are who you are today is all those bad things that happened to you.
Yeah.
And if you dwell on them, it doesn't change.
And and I think that a lot of us struggle with resentment towards our parents. But like if you like talking about people that have had it worse, like my parents for sure had it worse. My mom specifically was like the hated child of the family, and she got like verbally and mentally abused, emotionally abused,
physically abused too.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Physically, because for sure physically.
Things aren't taught, they're caught.
Yeah,
right?
my aunt, her sister, told my cousin, which is her daughter, a story where my mom got super sick when they were younger. And like she was really sick, like pretty much on her deathbed. And like they just like kind of left her there to die.
God, that's brutal.
Yeah. And I don't know. She still will like every once in a while bring up a story of something that happened, and it's just like that hurts. It hurts me to think about that, and it allows me to find grace for, she wasn't at all equipped to be a mother when she had 3 little girls, and she was a stay-at-home mom while my dad was traveling. It was really hard, and like, of course, as a child, it's not my problem, and like every child should have a nurturing parent, right? But that wasn't the case, and I, holding on to those resentments only hurts me. So I've been able to find a lot of grace from my parents.
You're gonna make me cry.
Yeah. And so my parents, it was like leading up into the point where my mom, there's just a lot.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's just a whole side quest. It's my brain.
There's a lot of side quests.
I know. Well, nothing. Just keep going.
What?
God dang it.
What?
So stupid.
What?
'Cause the other day you were like, I took a video of you and you were like,
oh.
Now every time you do it, I can't. I have
shit. Now that everyone watching is going to be keen in on it, so thank you. I appreciate that.
I tried to not. I don't know why I'm so stupid.
So anyway,
I like to make jokes when things are serious. Trauma.
I'm the master at doing that.
I know. So am I.
So leading up to my mom leaving, it was very much her decision. I don't think my dad wanted that to happen at all. My mom was cheating on my dad. And like, for some reason, when it was happening, me and my sisters knew about it. And it was like, we would like, I don't know, we would talk about it, but it wasn't, I think that we learned at an early age to use humor as a coping mechanism.
You know what that's so weird. You know what I literally just wrote down in my notebook? I wrote down laughing is therapy.
Yeah.
In the Mitchell house.
Yeah.
It's so true. Like you guys have always been like something could be very brutally wrong and everybody's like laughing and I'm like, oh shit. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, hey, that's so funny you said that.
But yeah, leading up into that point, like she was cheating on him. We knew about it. I don't even want to go into the details because it makes me sick. Like all of it makes me sick. Cause like we were talking about this the other day and it's just, I get emotional because I'm like an empath to like almost to a fault. It's my strength and my weakness.
Your biggest strength is always your biggest weakness.
When I like reflect back on those times, because I didn't know it at the time of how painful that had to have been both my parents and my dad, especially, right? Like I get emotional thinking about like the pain that he went through. And so he or she was kind of checked out towards like the end. And I just remember she was sleeping a lot and she would work off and on. And when she did work for like the casino, she would work graveyards. So she'd be sleeping during the day, but a lot of the time she wasn't working and she was just sleeping all the time. And there were definitely substance abuse issues that we found out along the way. And yeah, like my first bra my dad bought for me, like took me to Shopko and it was just a very awkward situation. Like go over there and pick out a bra.
Shout out to your
just
dad.
Quietly took me to Shopko and I'm just like, fuck.
I'm sure
wish his sister could have been here or something.
I was going to say, I'm sure that wasn't in the cards when like,
yeah,
you know, you have a kid, like you're thinking all these things and all of a sudden it all just falls apart.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Which is part of life, unfortunately. But,
yeah. And I think that, there's so much to it. Like the get married and have kids, white picket fence, that whole dream of a life is kind of pushed on everyone. And I think especially like that generation, you know, and it just.
For sure. And then they're trying to push it on us.
Yeah.
Like, it's always, oh, you need to do that. Like it's the American dream, which I don't fault anyone for, but it's okay that we're all different. Like,
yeah,
I think that's just a really good point, but.
It's crazy to think because a lot of people know, like your dad was saying when he was 22, he had 2 kids.
Yeah.
You know,
when he was 19,
like
that
generation grew up so much faster, but they weren't like, a lot of them weren't ready. And like, imagine like our 22-year-old nieces and nephews having kids right now is freaking insane, you know, married with kids.
No, don't do it.
But anyway, so.
Hey, but sometimes that helps you grow up. I know we both grew up really early.
Yeah.
I know I was a grown up at 17. I mean, seriously. I always remember hanging out with people that were a lot older than me because of that. But
so my mom moved away. She moved 30 minutes away to be closer to her job, which she worked in Corning at the time. And
she's always been a casino dealer.
She's always a blackjack dealer. Yeah. And she used to work at restaurants and stuff in the back, but yeah, mainly blackjack dealer.
Ever since I've known you, she's done casinos.
And right when she left, my dad also has always struggled with like having not, you know, like being unemployed off and on and during that time. And so leading up until that point, he didn't have a job. And then like he got a job. And then like right after he got a job, my mom left and we were just like super behind on all of our bills and everything. And, I remember we would always get like voicemails from our landlord. And again, we would all laugh and make fun of it because it was like funny.
That. Mike, the rent's due, Mike.
Yeah. But we didn't know as kids. And I think that we kind of did know. Like I remember not liking hearing that, but then we would just kind of make fun of it and, you know, laugh it off.
Laughing is therapy.
Yeah. It's like Chandler from Friends. He would just laugh at everything, you know, make inappropriate jokes. But shut up. No, I'm keying in on it.
I didn't even hear it.
It was never a question as to if we were going to go with my mom or not. It wasn't really like an option, but it also wasn't anything we wanted.
I find that really interesting. And in fact, just so everyone knows, we've actually recorded this episode 3 times because because I'm an asshole.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because I'm still learning how to be a production assistant and a production director.
It was like the night before our trip that we just went on a trip, and it was just the worst night
press
ever.
record, and we went over.
And it was like a very emotional conversation, and then like I felt so relieving to get it over with, and then oh shit, do it again. I didn't record.
It's good for you.
Oh, it's so good.
Frick, I forgot what we were talking about, but
about me not. It wasn't really a question as to.
Oh yeah, I always thought that was interesting. You know, you hear about custody battles and stuff. There was just nothing. I don't think your mom even knew what child support was because she probably. Well, I guess or your dad, right? I don't know. That's never been a thing in your family. Which
I think my dad bottled a lot of pain inside him, and he could have definitely gone through the court system. And my mom worked. You know. Quit ruining my pens.
I ruined it. Sorry.
But I think that he just had a really big like soft spot for her, I'm assuming. I don't really know. And I think he just like kept all of that pain inside him.
It's a
suppressed it.
It's a boomer thing to not show any emotion.
Yeah.
My dad's
boomer like male thing too. Yeah.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, I just remember like I didn't want to move to Red Bluff, and like how would school work? I can't go to two different schools, so it was just never a question. You know, we would visit her every once in a while, but yeah. And then right after she left, we ended up getting an eviction notice on our house, and that was when like the shit show started of like the next couple years of being homeless off and on. We lived in a motel for. It's all the timeline is fuzzy, but we lived in a motel. We ended up for like a short period of time. We found a house that we lived in for like 6 months, and then we got kicked out of that house after 6 months. Then we moved back into a hotel, and this was the Reading Inn. So the Reading Inn was like the
just to
motel.
give the viewers a picture. It's torn down now, right?
Yeah, they completely demolished it. It was in
for
that
good reason.
Yeah, it was in that property that's in between Roots on Pine and Fidelity. So there's just this big empty lot that's kind of next to where Darkside was. But it was there. It was like probably the cheapest motel in town. It was a very hotel. Crackhead motel. Yeah. I think two weeks after we left, there was a meth explosion. Yeah. So lived there for a good part of a year, I want to say. Like, I don't remember exactly, but I had to have been 6 to 8 months. And it was definitely a really hard time for me because it was, you know, I was becoming an adult. I like, you know.
Those are like some real, when I think back on that time, like those are some real.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about my story. I was just being an asshole, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started my period for the first time right around that time, you know. Going to all the my 8th grade winter banquet and just not having, my dad worked night. And I just remember being very alone and just like mortified at you know, living in a motel is super embarrassing. And there were times where we didn't have a car, and it's like the universe blessed me with a mechanic.
I'm here to save you
because we never
with my
like
mechanical abilities. Side note, I have a side story, but go ahead. Sorry.
We never had during that time. We had like this Mitsubishi Diamante, and it ended up dying. I don't know what happened to it. And then my dad had this car that he got from his girlfriend that was like a Taurus or something that just barely worked. It ended up breaking down. It wouldn't drive. Someone still was able to steal it and like drive it down the road. And then like some days we'd walk out of our motel room and there'd be someone stealing the tires off of it, like right in front of us, or people stealing stuff out of the trunk.
And like just thinking about what that does to a kid, like a child that's learning how the world works is.
Yeah. Right crazy. When I'm like I said, I was becoming a woman, right? Yeah. I'm like trying.
You're learning
and there's the pressures of school
terrifying.
And like the popular kids, and I'm just like this.
But it's really not.
God, I just wanted to be so invisible, you know.
I feel like shame is the biggest, deepest emotion I could think of. If you in that time is like be invisible, be shameful, which is they say is the most powerful of human emotions. Is shame. Yeah, that's why people use shame and guilt to manipulate people, because it's the easiest low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, and there was no Uber back then, so like some days we would like drive. My dad would come with me, and my dad did everything he possibly could to just accommodate the shitty situation, you know. We would go to Safeway together and make little, you know, meals on our little electric fryer, and I don't know, he tried everything he could to make the situation, you know, as easy as. And he'd drive with me with the taxi. drop me off, I'd be like, hey, drop me off at Rother across the street because I don't want anyone to see me getting out of a taxi. And like the 8th grade banquet, my mom came to town. She was supposed to pick me up from it. She fell asleep at her friend's house, wouldn't answer her phone. I'm standing out with the principal of the school, like, hey, I can give you a ride home. And I'm just like, fuck. If she gives me a ride home, takes me to this motel, I'm definitely going to end up in foster care, And so it was just, yeah.
I thought, yeah.
So just chaos, right? In summary, just a lot of chaos.
That up, but that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, to think that you are how you are now and where you're at now, be fucking proud of yourself.
Yeah. And my sisters, like my oldest sister, she had a boyfriend at the time, so she really didn't experience the motel life at all. And then my middle sister, she did for sure, but she also had a boyfriend and she spent a lot of time at his house, but she still slept in the motel, like with us,
And felt that instability, like even if you're not there. And there's just all different levels of trauma.
So then finally we got these we moved into this townhouse, Azulay Apartments, and I like to call that my summer home because we were only there for 2 months during the summer.
Summer home.
Of going
only for 2 months.
Yeah, from 8th grade, the summer from 8th grade to freshman year.
Azulay for 2 months? Mm-hmm. Oh no, Tanglewood is the one I'm thinking.
Tanglewood, we were there for like 6 to 8 years. So that was like my home growing up.
I was gonna say for 2 months, but yeah.
No, Tanglewood was like my childhood. Yeah. Well, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Azulay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So we lived there. I've always pretty much been a very isolated little kid living in solitude. That's
why we got along so well.
Yeah. I always had like one friend at a time. I never had any more than one friend. I never had a big group. It was always just one. And at that time, it was Sylvia. Shout out to Sylvia. She was an awesome friend, and her family was also great. And my sister's cat had a bunch of kittens, and so I ended up spending the whole summer with the kittens, and it was just the best little experience, right? But then, like literally weeks before high school was starting, we got another eviction notice, and I just remember I literally wanted to die. I was so done with it, like. Already the pressure of going into high school and then I'm going to be living in a motel, was freaking terrible. And I have a lot of diary entries from that time. And it was a very dark time for me. I was never suicidal, but I just remember wishing that something would kill me, like it was rough.
That's suicidal.
Well, I didn't want to inflict it on myself. I just wanted it to happen. There's a difference.
Yeah.
But so we moved into another apartment or another motel. My dad let me pick this one because there's this one on North Market that I really liked that looked like it had like a Spanish style to it, which is funny because our house now also has that same style.
She loves the Spanish style.
Yeah. So we lived there, and we only lived there for a very short period of time, but it was still really hard. I was super embarrassed. Like, I hope no one sees me walking into this motel.
That one was also a motel. It still is.
Yeah.
Now it's got like Turtle Bay.
It wasn't that bad. Yeah. It was very moist, but it wasn't. I don't remember being scared.
There was leaks. Moisture. That was the crack seeping through the walls.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So then we moved into our orange house, and that's where you and I met. Actually, yeah, when we like officially met on MySpace, and
we were just talking about that, how our whole, I don't know if you're following this podcast. Hopefully, you're following All Dogs Thrive, which is our new nonprofit that we're just starting. Still in the works of doing all of it, but we were just talking about how our whole relationship is based on animals.
Yeah,
literally. Like we met in a personal growth class.
Yeah. And we were watching The White Squall, and it's like the universe, right? It's so powerful to think about everything that's happened to lead up until this point, the good, the bad, the ugly. And the fact that Mrs. Ramirez sat us next to each other, that if that hadn't happened and it was just a random seating chart that she had assigned.
It was quiet. I wanted to be invisible just as much as you did.
Yeah. We never actually talked in person, but I remember I would like try to use the guy next to you to like spark conversation, Joe Riddle, because I think you guys were kind of friends.
Yeah.
And
we went to K through 8 together.
Yeah, and I just, yeah, I remember I wanted to talk to you. I just was so nervous and didn't know how. And but yeah, the fact that like the seating chart was the way it was
and
is just
how it's all animal related.
Yeah,
like,
and so the White Squall movie where they were killing the dolphin and you were just freaking out, and you were this quiet kid, but you were like, oh my God, no, they're not going to do that. Oh my God, are you serious? And you were just like upset about it. And I also wrote that about that in my diary. And it was just, I just remember being like, oh my God.
To think back.
This is my guy.
And like just to paint a picture, because like we're trying to do a podcast in roughly an hour, but there's a lot that goes into that. But to think back, like at that point, we had never even probably spoke 3 words to each other.
Mm-hmm.
To think that you were writing about me in your diary is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
I just remember because you went to a different middle school than I did. And I had I just thought you were attractive because I'm a teenage boy. And like to think that you like in it, that I would have just never thought that. That's crazy to me. Like, especially, I mean, I literally went to school looking like a straight up bum.
Yeah.
My hair was down. Like, I know some of you are going to be listening, but if you're watching, is down to like shoulder length or below. I'm wearing Nirvana t-shirts with huge holes in them and shit, and like shorts that I've had for 10 years. Like, I did not look like satiating.
Yeah, and satiating. And it's so funny because like the first half of the year we were in social science and we sat across the room from each other, but I had like this list of boys that I liked that I thought were cute, you know, and you were like across from you made
Who else
the cut.
is on the list?
None of your business. And you were like on the list, and then I'm like, oh my God, now we're sitting next to each other. But anyway, when we like started to get more serious and talking and stuff, I was like, I thought you were poor, like, you know.
I mean, I was
you
poor,
like
but
you were street.
we were white picket fence.
You
poor,
had
baby.
private struggles that you didn't know about. But
yeah, we were playing the part of not poor. But
yeah,
we might have been more poor.
But you had like a really nice home and like, you know, anyway, stability. But you gave off this, you know, it's giving poverty look.
That's just.
And I was like, oh, cool, we can relate. Like, you had like holes in your shirt, and I was just thinking like, safe zone, you know. I don't have to worry about being with some rich guy and then like me being this poor motel girl, you know.
So funny how our little tiny brains work. And then on MySpace we would just talk about our cats for hours.
Yeah, and I think adults work like that too. But yeah, and then
tribe mentality. Yeah,
and then also someone that you dated in the past kind of gave me the lowdown that you were like a terrible boyfriend, and you just, and so but I was like, oh cool, he's a bad boy, you know, like, oh, he parties and
the baddest
blah blah blah
of boys.
Yeah.
Then you got with me, you're like, oh shit,
and I'm like, oh, he's a clinger.
Yeah. He cries every 5 seconds.
But I was very much like avoidance, like I could only handle. I remember like if you texted me and I didn't respond, you would like resend a text, and I would just get so freaked out by that, like because I was just so like feral and like. Ugh.
Well, like we talked about in my episode, I tend to be a little obsessive. Like if I don't get what I want, I'm like, I'll send 500 emails to 6,000 helicopter companies to get a fucking sponsorship.
Yeah.
But okay, so
it worked.
You're in freshman year.
Yeah. So then
you're living in a motel.
So we moved to the Orange Avenue place. It was like a little fourplex. And that was, I love that. It was just like this tiny little shack looking like 600 square foot.
It's not about the house.
But it had its own little front porch, and it had like a carport and stuff. And I just remember that was a great, I had a lot of good memories there. And that was like the first bit of stability in a long time, you know, and that's where we met. We would hang out there. Sorry, Dad, but
it was also moist.
My dad worked nights, and you know, I'd have friends over sometimes. Nick,
don't put this on the airway.
Confession.
Dad's gonna murder me. I figured.
But yeah, that was just my first home after, you know, of stability after a really long time of just really going through it. And and I feel like there's so many details that go into that, but my mom lived in Red Bluff, and I have so many bad memories of her apartment because whenever I'd go visit, she was going through a phase where
you don't have to protect her.
Well, she was like partying with like 20-something-year-olds, and I just like reflecting back, man, it was just not a good environment for kids. Me and my sisters, and my sister was 14, and some 20-something-year-old guy was trying to get with her, and it was terrible. It was a terrible, and there was a situation with my mom's boyfriend and our cats that were staying there, and he was abusing them, and he broke my sister's cat's leg, and my cat disappeared. I don't know if he killed him and that, like, I mean, if you know me, you know I have 7 dogs, 2 cats. I think there's a little bit of trauma there, right? Oh,
fuck.
But yeah, there was a lot.
I always want to find that guy and fucking
me too.
murder
I still like, yeah. That's the one person I haven't been able to find grace for.
One day. I don't have any grace
because
for
it
anyone.
just broke my heart.
Those two
my
things,
cat.
really.
Yeah.
There's zero
Roger,
grace for me.
my little stray cat.
I don't hold resentment, but I wouldn't mind getting even. There's no holds barred on that. But
yeah.
Yeah, that's you summed up a lot there, and I think that a lot of that is what built. I mean, talking about animals, like a lot of my childhood, we didn't talk about it in my story as much, but so much like animals.
Yeah.
animals, and they're just so pure. They
give that unconditional love.
Exactly, and like when you're a kid and
they
you're
just
dealing
forgive
with
you.
all these different emotions and things, and animals are the one thing, man. Like my dog Frisky, dude, he was ugly as hell, but he was just happy to see me. Always, Yogi, good boy, always happy to see me. And I think our whole relationship is literally based on animals, which is hilarious. We would literally I wish we could get on MySpace and find our own messages.
I tried.
Oliver and
I tried.
Stumpy.
And then I remember I told my friend Myra about that. I was like, hey, Myra, Nick and I talked all night last night for 4 hours. And on MySpace, we were doing it on the comments, so it was public. And so I had her go and look. And then I remember she commented, like, oh my God, wow, you guys really did talk for this long. And I was like, delete your comment.
No.
You weren't supposed to do
So
that.
Funny.
So high school. I was in high school. You and I started dating. Thank God.
I was not in high school, obviously.
Well, yeah, you were for a little bit.
Showing up there.
Yeah, and there was a period of time where I was actually doing homeschool with you, and I remember I was like trying to help you do your homework and stuff, and then you eventually just gave up, and I ended up going back to Enterprise. I just got so far behind that I was like, I need to go to homeschool and catch up because I was terrified. I was just failing, and I had never failed before. But that was my sophomore year. So I guess I'm going to backtrack for like a second. So there was a time at the Azalea Apartments where my oldest sister, I'm going to put her on blast because she totally gaslit me for this later on. But she was like, hey, if you clean my room for me, I'll take you shopping. I was like, oh, sick. Okay, I need some clothes. So I cleaned her room. She took me to the mall and then taught me how to shoplift.
That's fucking funny.
And then I remember feeling so dirty about it. I just felt so disgusting. I journaled about it. Like, I feel so wrong, but it's so nice to have.
Wrong, but feels
yeah,
so
but it was like, oh, I have this whole new wardrobe now, and
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure it goes without saying if you're living in a hotel, there's not a lot of money for food, clothes, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and like the pressures of high school,
expensive.
Yeah, it was all for girls at least. Back then. Now it's like sweatpants and Crocs. I wish that was the thing when I was in school, but back then it was just all about the clothes. Like
a hood rat.
Yeah. So I just remember, like feeling really gross about it, but also like really good at the same time.
Yeah.
And then it kind of became a habit. That carried on for a while, and
because in freshman year,
that was
where
8th grade.
I was gonna say I used to steal a lot of shit.
A lot, and then I think when I got caught, I was a junior. So you were telling me to stop. You're gonna get caught, and I was like, whatever, stop. And my dad would be like, hey, where'd you get that outfit? I'd be like, oh, Nick bought it for me.
He's like, oh, okay.
And I would just always have new clothes on me.
Nick sleeps on his couch. Okay.
And so one day I went to the mall with my friend and my sister, and they're like, yeah, let's go shoplifting. And my friend never actually did shoplift. She just like, she'd like want to, but then never did. And we ended up getting caught. And I'm grateful for it. It haunted me for a long freaking time where I would have nightmares about it. I would like just have panic attacks thinking about it. I went into like a super dark depression after it happened. I wouldn't talk. I didn't tell you for a really long time. I wouldn't talk to my dad.
You just like kind of went MIA for a while. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I like stopped going to school too. Yeah, it was a whole thing. And by this time we had moved. I moved to those El Portal apartments, and yeah. My friend, her mom, so she didn't actually take anything that time. So the police released her or the loss prevention, but they actually did call a police officer, and it was American Eagle and Macy's. I was the only one that took something from Macy's. So my sister didn't get any charges against her when she was, I think she was over 18, which is, a blessing that nothing happened to her. But I stole from Macy's, and American Eagle didn't press charges, but Macy's did. And so my dad, I think, had to pay a fine. I don't know if he ever did or not, but there was a fine, and then I had to do one work day at the juvenile court.
Could I back you up, though? What's interesting is, like, at that moment, you were probably like, oh, she didn't steal from Macy's, so she just got off free. But wasn't that the biggest gift?
Yeah. It was a
Aren't you glad that you stole from Macy's?
Yeah.
Because if you didn't, you might have kept stealing and been a totally different person.
But honestly, like, it haunted me for years, Nick.
You needed
probably
that.
Until like 2020. So very recently, it haunted me. Like into my adult years, where I'm like, I didn't want anyone at the shop to ever find out about it. I didn't want your family to. I literally just told your family for the first time several years ago, and I remember your brother's brother, Spencer, happened to be at that same freaking work day as me, and I was like, great, he's gonna tell the whole family.
He's gonna spill the beans.
But obviously he was there and he was in trouble, so that wasn't the case.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, you know me, I'm thinking about things on a little deeper level, but it's like, isn't it crazy that at that point you were only 17, 18? Everyone had made you feel like you needed to put up such an illusion to look this certain way that you were afraid to just admit a fault.
Yeah.
Isn't that like nuts?
Yeah.
And that's how the world lives, right?
Yeah.
Like we were talking with one of our, one of our managers, and it's like he was telling us about a friend that he has that owns some businesses, and like he had this brand new truck and whatever, all this stuff. And then, he gets to know him on a deeper level, and he's selling some of the businesses, and he's like going under, and it's like, it's so shitty that
I think that happened to both of our parents too.
Of course, it's the world puts that shit on you. I don't give a
like with my parents, especially like their generation, it was my dad handled all the money. He worked, he handled all the money. My mom was the stay-at-home caretaker provider. And like he, I think, was afraid to be open and honest about the struggles. And
that's
then,
exactly how I feel like
then
my
he would
dad
just
was
fill
as
the
well. needs
financially and then some, right? Like they ended up like designing a whole home in Hanford and, like got all the best of the best, and then it all fell apart because there was no money to back that. And it was just like they were trying so hard to like fulfill this American dream that it fell apart.
When we forgot to fulfill ourselves.
That pressure, yeah.
We forgot to fill our heart.
That pressure of society.
And the funny thing is, like, what no one tells you is you fill your heart, and then you get all the rest. Mm-hmm. If you just worry about what you're passionate about, if you worry about fuck all the money. This is an argument I used to have. I've told you this. My brother and my uncle used to argue with me when I was 15 years old because I always just thought money doesn't matter because it fucking doesn't.
Yeah.
It's literally just a piece of paper. Like, it's a useful tool, but like they were taught so much that stuff mattered, and it just destroyed people. I mean, look at the housing crisis, Mm-hmm. Like, sorry, I just thought that's crazy because it's like, I
was terrified, and then I
vulnerable, and real.
And then one year, I was like, I'm gonna share. We did this exercise at a coaching conference that we went to, the timeline exercise, and some of the members in our group, like from the outside, I thought they were trust fund babies. Yeah. They had this whole trust fund baby look, and then when he spoke and he told his timeline story about how his dad was a criminal and he would help him in like stealing car. I don't even remember drug deals.
Yeah,
and
like crazy
when he was
shit.
like 15 years old. And I was like, oh my God, I totally had it all wrong. Like how dare I have those assumptions? Like this guy is come from absolute nothing and like went through so much shit, you know, with his dad. And anyway, then I'm like, I want to tell that. I want to do that with our team. And so we went back and, you know, just spilled everything, like our upbringing, your brain tumor diagnosis. And then afterwards, Brené Brown calls it the vulnerability hangover. And I didn't know it at the time, but you and I both were just it was kind of like, cause it was like a serious time. It was just, there was a lot of just stuff that we kind of dumped on them. And it was like deep and sad. And anyway, it was kind of awkward. And then
awkward.
And then later on that day, and we weren't really that good at speaking back then either. So it was just like, here's a photo of the Reading Inn. This is where I lived.
Yeah. Look, Nicole lived in a hotel. Nick has a huge brain tumor.
Nicole got caught shoplifting.
Now, we don't want to have any attention on us because we're still those invisible people. Yeah. So can we hide now?
Yeah. And then you and I ended up getting into a big argument, totally regretting everything. Like, why did we do that? And then a couple of days later, 2 of our team members came to me and was like, hey, thanks for sharing that story. Like, I actually went through something very similar. And one of our technicians went through the same Macy's situation that I did. And it was just like, it's the same exact thing where he was so shameful and like never would step foot in the mall again. And, you know, and just thought he was a criminal. And it was just like, okay, I'm glad I shared that because we're all struggling with something, you know, and we all are so afraid and shameful, and we really shouldn't because we're all imperfect human beings, and we're all trying to put on this front that we're perfect, you know.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because of some bigger power that made us think that that's the way for money, and won't get too deep.
Yeah. So after that, you know, I don't know. We were at the El Portal Apartments. It's funny because one of our service advisors was my neighbor back then, Robert. And
I bought my first motorcycle from him and rebuilt it. And I always remember his dad, like when I pulled it back up, he saw it and he was just like, "What is that? The same motorcycle?" You know.
And I remember, like, I had brought home Gretchen and Junebug, and Gretchen would get out every day. And my sister one time let her out and was like, I'm running late for work, so I can't, you know, I'm not gonna let her back in. And I was at work, and then thank God, I think it was Robert's dad ended up grabbing her and putting her back in her house. But anyway, I was gonna say earlier, speaking of my sister, she gaslit me because when I got caught stealing, she was talking about how I was this like terrible person, and my mom ended up feeling bad, and she bought me like this brand new coat and stuff, and it was like, oh my God,
that's evil.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was like, you're gonna reward her for stealing. And it was this whole thing,
but
right?
She's the one who taught you to do it.
Yeah. And so I was just like, I can't believe she did that, you know? But then also my friend that got caught, her mom, I loved her mom. I still love her mom. She's really helped me a lot. Kelsey, her mom, like also was like, oh my, because like everyone knew that like that's not something that I was, you know,
it's out of character
doing.
for you. It was,
She ended up giving me $100, you know, and it was just like, I don't know, just little things like that, you know. And she ended up helping me with a bunch of dental work and stuff too. And I'm just really grateful for, I don't know, just little acts like that. They probably don't even think it's that big of a deal, but it makes me emotional.
I love that. I think that it's insane and you're making me emotional, but it's insane the power of just a little fucking human kindness can do. We all just go through the world thinking that we need to put on this show, we need to be perfect, and then we hate each other, find every reason not to do anything. Like, quit with the expectations from others, or thinking that, like, I let go of that shit a long time ago, and it's so helpful.
Yeah.
Like, when you go to help somebody, I don't think like, are they gonna use this again? Like, are they gonna use this No, you just give to give. It feels side quest, and we're 45 minutes in, but I got a little side quest. When we open Thrive, I'm gonna start crying because I think it's super cool that we'll, you know, just everything. But you know, we had a new team. We're sitting there. and there's this guy who keeps coming in the damn office, and he keeps taking our snacks.
Homeless
because we have snack bar and everything. If you need your car fixed, shout out Thrive Automotive downtown. But
free snacks, free drinks, baby.
Free drinks and everything else. And he just kept coming in, and they would yell at him like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he just would ignore them and walk out. And then one day I was there, and he did that. And they brought it to my attention. Hey, he keeps doing that. We don't know what to do. Blah blah blah. So and at this point, I think our team didn't really know me that well ish. So I grabbed a bunch of stuff and ran after him, and then I like tapped on his shoulder. His name is Laurel, and I just gave him all that. I said, "Dude, you don't have to come in here sneaking around. Like, if you need food, I'll buy you food anytime." So he, she, anyone, right? And when I came back, I remember everyone's face like, wow, that was kind of cool. Like, whoa, like I don't think they had ever seen
you like
that.
ran out, and I thought you were going to give him shit. And I was like, oh my God, what is he doing? And then I look out the window and I see you have like snacks in your hand, and then you're like giving it to him. And I literally just started crying. Like, oh my God.
And fun fact, Laurel was fucking deaf.
Yeah.
So he wasn't ignoring us. He just couldn't hear us. So turns out, long story short, but I just think it's the power of human kindness. Turns out Laurel is he's just legitimately homeless. He's not a drug addict that I could tell. I mean, I'm a pretty good judge of character.
Just no life skills.
He just didn't. He probably had a real tough childhood. I talked to him for a while. Then when we got it, he could kind of like mouth read and everything. And
probably like zero negative confidence, no life skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our manager, Matt, shout out to Matt, ended up keep talking to him, and we got him a fucking bus ticket back to his family.
Yeah, he gave him like his jacket when it was during winter. It was cold and rainy, and then one of our service advisors brought him a comforter from home, and it just became like this thing where everyone was just trying to show up for him. And
you hear, God damn it, I'm getting like mad. So you hear so many people downtown in our area. If you're not from around here, there's a lot of homelessness. There's a lot of poverty, and it's like, these people, they break this and that. Guess what? You show them a little fucking kindness and they don't. We had somebody break our window. Mm-hmm. I fixed the window. It's not a huge deal. Yeah. I'm not fucking worried. You should be making enough I get that it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But the kindness will overcome. We've had one window broken. We've had a little bit of scribbles on our door. I will continue.
Mark our territory.
Yeah, somebody peed out front. Hey, you gotta pee. So I will continue to be as kind. I don't give a crap if they break every window in that thing, right? Yeah. Because that's the power of it. It's way more powerful than the hatred. And you can't put them all in a box
too. Like, of course there are people that are, dangerous.
Oh yeah, some of them are straight crazy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not ignorant.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
but you can't, because of one person. It's just like with anything, with race, with gender, you can't box people with religion, humans. With politics. Yeah. Stop trying to box people. Stop it. So anyway,
sorry, side quest, but I just thought it was important because I think that exactly what you're touching on is like Kelsey's mom. I always think about how powerful that was for her. And in the moment, I'm like, oh, that was nice. She got you dental work, but she knew you were a poor kid, and no one could do that for you, So, carry on. I'm sorry.
And I honestly, like, I think about that a lot, and
how powerful is that? And I bet you, I don't know what Laurel's doing right now, but if he even thinks about it for a second and passes it on to the next person, imagine the power that we cannot do. Sorry, again, I feel really passionate about it. We cannot do things on our own. I can only change. I can change a lot of people's lives through others, but I can't do it individually myself, right? Yeah. So if I can give him some kindness, and maybe he goes and gets infectious. A job, maybe he's a huge CEO of another company and helps millions of people.
Or
I don't know.
Or
two people.
Or he just does an act of kindness to someone else, and then they feel really good about it. It's like a domino effect.
No, it's like you ever hear that investment thing? Would you rather have $100,000 at the end of the month, or would you rather double? Your penny turns to 2 pennies, 2 pennies turns to 4. Yeah. That's exactly the fact of compounding interest,
exactly.
right? compounding
it's like you're this
kindness
light,
interest.
and like the brighter you can shine your light, the more people you can touch.
And that's our goal with All Dogs Thrive.
Well, I was gonna say, and not only that, but within our business too, like that
everything,
little acts, like
fuck everything else.
Someone's kid has cancer and their car's broken down, you know, and that was something that one of our technicians, Adam Lamar, was like, you know, like we need to help these people, and he was like, I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to fix their car to help them out.
And
he's
it's with
got
your
5 kids
gift,
of his
right?
own. Yeah,
because I think, goddamn, this is fire. I love it. But it's like we think, oh, I'm a mechanic. I can't, you know, help blank. Your skills can help the world, man. Like whatever those skills are.
And your heart. Yeah. So powerful moment. So, and like in summary, like it's like little things like that have happened, and that happened to me when I was
that changed your life.
When I was a child, and that sticks with me. And I'm 32, you know, and I think about it all the time, and it plays a huge part in my actions today, you know.
And I think, you know, we want to get to your lower career, and I think that's another power for it, right?
And like not only that, but with like parenting too. Like, of course, my parents weren't perfect, but they did a lot of fucking amazing things, and it's so easy for us to focus on all the negative. And we were talking the other day about, you know, one of the most amazing memories I have with my mom is when she went with me on a field trip. She was a chaperone, and like my parents never did that, so she like packed my lunch and she came with me, and she was sitting next to me on the bus, and just like she like touched my leg, you know, and it was just like makes me emotional. But I tell that to our manager, Kyle. Like, he has kids and he's so active with them, and I'm like, dude, like you don't even realize how powerful that is for them. Like that's gonna go so far, you know. Little things like that. Or my dad, when we were living in the motel, and it was Christmas, and both my sisters, we like opened our presents in the motel room, and then they all left and hung out with their boyfriends, and it was just me and my dad, and he kind of started to kick back and like turn the TV on, and I'm just like, fuck, that was it. 5 minutes of like opening presents, and everyone ditched, and now I'm just sitting in this motel room, and I started crying. And that time the car was fucked up, you know? And so he felt, of course, really bad. And so we ended up going to a movie. We went to go see King Kong, and we were like literally in the front row seat because it was packed, like watching the movie. It was like a 4-hour movie too. And then it's just like that little moment right there stuck with me. Like, he truly was trying his best with the tools that he had, you know, and then the car was broken down at the movie theater, and we got stuck there.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up earlier when I said I had a side story. It's so funny that you said, oh, the mechanic brought in, but I remember when your mom's car was breaking down when I was like 17, and she needed a mass airflow sensor.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's a really good story.
And
her car broke down. She was visiting in town. Her car broke down. It would break down sporadically, like in the middle of Cypress Hilltop intersection. It was just so stressful. Then it would start back up, and, you know, it'd be fine. Anyway, it broke down in front of Paul Stower Automotive when I was like 15, 16 years old. And again, super stressful. You know, we were just in the middle of nowhere, you know,
your mom
middle
is
of
not
town.
the best at English or just
life experience.
The world.
Yeah. Especially auto repair. Like, that's already a scary situation for people that don't know anything about cars. And and then the guys come out, and it's funny because I don't know if Adam Kavar worked there at that time, but he could have. You know, he's currently on our team. He worked at Paul Stower for a really long time. They come out. They're so nice. They're like very accommodating, reassuring us, like pretty much like just there to take care of us. They didn't charge us anything. They did take it on a quick test drive. Couldn't get it to break down, couldn't get it to act up for them. And we were sitting in their little office that was out in the shop, and it just, that memory, like that core memory for me.
You talked about that.
Their kindness that they expressed towards us was just a memory, you know, a really, really powerful memory that stuck with me for a really long time.
And now
we're
in Paul Stower.
Yeah, now we're in that building, the Thrive. And
who would have known that fucking 16, 15-year-old kid would buy that business?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah. And
my brain is, and it just,
and I always talked about that moment.
You always did.
When we
always
bought
said
the
Paul
shop.
Stower, like
they were so nice.
We need to do exactly what they did. Yeah. And now to think that we own that is fucking nuts. And that's the power of manifestation, people.
Yeah.
But
I remember like that, Paul Stower, like that, even hearing that name, it like has this warm spot in my heart. And it's, we were like thinking about keeping the name.
We
like
have a sign that says Paul Stower.
It's been sitting in our living room from the last year. But we for sure were like, we're going to keep the name because it's nostalgic. And I love, the memory that I have with Paul Stower. But then we were like, we've been wanting to brand Thrive for a really long time. And,
all dogs thrive. Yeah. I love the word thrive.
So we
Nicole
made the hard decision.
Shout out.
I was sleeping on an airplane and it was like, Thrive, that's it. It came to me when I was half asleep, which is weird. But yeah, that was a really good memory. Very powerful.
I love all these stories because they just, get day to day. You kind of forget that, you were 15 and broke down in a place that now you freaking own. Or that the minute I walked into Anderson Automotive, the first time I talked with Rick, he tells me, yeah, you could own this one day. And I think,
whatever.
It's fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. These things are here. There's signs, people. You gotta look for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they happen, you don't know, but you got to be able to look back retrospectively.
And sometimes you got to ask for them, And I think that's the power of meditation and prayer. Like, I do it all the time. I'm like, I'm trying to figure this out. Like, help me, universe, help me. And it literally, like, I have this story again where probably going to sound pretty kooky to a lot of people, but
kind of kooky, but
I was reading this book that was like about, signs from loved ones that have passed or just, universal energy. And it was like talking about how you like choose something as a sign, and like a memory of my grandma. My grandma died when I was in 6th grade, and she was someone that like that saying where people don't remember how you made them or what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. I butchered that, but they remember the feeling that you gave them, not like what they actually said to you. And my grandma, I just have this warm feeling. Like, I was young when she died, but it was really hard. And I remember it really affected me. And we used to, when we would go visit her, we would always eat lemons together. Me and my grandma would cut up a lemon and just like salt it and like eat, like lick the lemons and watch supermarket sweep game shows. That was like our thing. Well, I was like, whenever like I run, or whenever I'm doing something really hard, I envision like core people that support me that are no longer with me, or even like my dog, like Gretchen that passed away. And so anyway, with my grandma, I'm like, our lemons were our thing. So anyway, during my early years of running, I went on like one of my first like long runs. It was super hot outside. I was running and like in the middle of like Caldwell Park, there's no lemon trees out there. There was just a lemon sitting right off the side of the trail, just a random lemon on the ground. How weird is that? It's like, you got to ask for these things, Yeah. If anyone,
you got to be looking too.
Yeah. You got to be looking. You got to be keen into it.
Whatever that is. It's powerful.
And like, for all the people that are like, oh my God, she's fucking crazy. Like, why would you, I don't know. It brings me so much like peace and solace. Like, why would you fight that if it only just elevates your life?
And like that's such a great point, because I've heard people say the term toxic positivity, and I just don't fucking understand it. Why would I choose? Sometimes I realize that things are oh my God. I mean, Nicole can attest to it, but I can be intensely negative just as I can be intensely positive. But why would I choose that?
Yeah.
Even if it is true, why would I choose it?
Yeah.
You have choices. No one else is in control of your life, right? Mm-hmm. Why are you going to let your days be bad? You're in control of them.
Gratitude is a choice. It's a habit.
Everything's a choice. Yeah. Everything. If you don't believe that, you're going to live a sad life.
Yeah. And it's like, if you want to go into detail on it, which I used to all the time, but I was born this way or that way, or, people that are born in third world countries,
there's always someone.
Yeah.
There's always a story that's worse.
There's always an element of luck, right? Like, I was born in the United States, and that is a big deal.
You were born.
Yeah.
In general.
I was born.
Yeah.
I am here. My soul is here. There's so much that goes into it, but like, it's just gratitude, and then knowing that you are the master of your destiny, and there's always going to be the uncontrollable things that happen, the things that get thrown at you, but it's how you can't control that, but you can control how you react to it and what you take from it. you know? So anyway, graduated high school, back to my storyline. You and I were together. We were very toxic, I think. I was toxic. I was a very unstable child. I kind of inherited the aggressive lashing out, getting physical. You know, I remember I wasn't a good partner, but, and we were just young kids.
I don't really remember. I don't know if I was good or bad. I'm sure I was just.
I think you were amazing.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
I think you were too. I think you taught me a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I think that you provided me so much. Like, I've seen the journey that and I'm not like discrediting the struggles that we've gone through, because our relationship's definitely the hardest thing I've ever poured into, but the most rewarding. So I don't want to, people might think
we're not always just
they have it easy. They have each other, but
they're just best friends. Oh, buddy. I'm sorry to tell you.
Yeah. But like to see like my sister's journeys and like their relationships, and they're not being, like their trust issues and,
that's one thing we've never
cheating
had.
And all that.
I think either of us.
And I think that if I did go down that path, I would be a very different person, So I'm just,
you got to trust somebody. I mean, and that goes back to like trusting that Laurel got on a bus that we paid for him, or trusting that when I give somebody something, like they're going to use it correctly. You got to just trust people, man. It's okay. It really is. Honestly, it pays off way more than distrust. I know way too many people that don't trust anybody, and it's a paranoid, unhappy life. I choose to trust everybody within reason. I'm not an idiot, right? But like, I mean, God, we've done business deals on trust. I've always heard that from higher, mentors. Like a lot of it has to do with like, we can do all these contracts and shit, but if you don't trust somebody, you can write all these contracts in the world, but as soon as you go to sue somebody or something happens, you're screwed. Nobody wants that. God, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
I do not want to deal with that. So anyway.
And we can go more into that too in our relationship, but I think we broke up all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think relationships is huge, and it's a really big need, right? It's a really big thing that a lot of people struggle with. I think that we're all instinctually like meant to find a life partner and do life with another person. And it's beautiful. It's painful, but it's beautiful, Oh
yeah.
And I think we have so much to share on that. But so I graduated high school. I was working at Little Caesars, sign shaking, which was freaking amazing. I actually loved working at Little Caesars. I really did. I loved the culture. I loved the culture, the managers, the people that I worked with were all my age, and it was just such a good environment. But the sign shaking, 4 hours of just being out on the corner with, baking, my legs baking in the sun.
You used to have the worst.
No Apple Music back then.
I
had a Nano, which had, not that many choices on it. No podcasts.
One CD on it.
Yeah. And then like homeless people would come up to me and like say nasty things to me. And it was just, I hated it. And back then I didn't have the ability to like speak up and be like, hey, you guys, I love working here, but I can't do the sign shaking. Cause I know I probably would have been able to stay there and like,
again,
not sign shake, but I'm glad. Yeah. So then I ended up finding and getting a job at PetSmart, which I was like so thrilled about. Like, oh, that was a big deal. Yeah. Like I was going to be
working
a bather.
With animals again. Animals have always been the cornerstone.
And that was when
life.
I was like, I'm not going to move with you to Sacramento. But I was living at the El Portal townhouse with my sisters. They moved back in. As a whole, we had like 7 to 9 cats. There were a lot of cats. None of them used the bathroom. And then I brought Gretchen home and Junebug. And Junebug's still around. She's like 16 years old. She's old as dirt.
Which is crazy that she was in El Portal. I forget.
Yeah.
I forget that.
Yeah, but Gretchen was there. And Gretchen was a 65-pound golden retriever mix in a small townhouse.
And we didn't know how to train dogs then.
No.
She wasn't great trained.
And Gretchen was freaking neurotic.
She was crazy.
But
remember
I
used
loved
to
her
spray her with water.
Yeah.
She'd run around.
Yeah, and she always herded the cats. Like, we'd be like, get Trixie.
Yeah.
Like, if Trixie was doing something bad. And she wouldn't hurt them, but she would just, like, chase them up the stairs or something. And, yeah, shout out to Gretchen right here. So
she's on Nicole's arm if you're listening.
So I was working at Little Caesars and PetSmart, and I enrolled in Shasta College, all in a closet, like at the same time. And I remember I rarely showered back then because I was so tired. I was just constantly working and going to school.
You mean it took hard work to get where you're at?
Yeah.
Huh,
and then my dad, I think,
3 jobs.
Kind of just I don't know. I would be interested in chatting with him on this, but we ended up getting kicked out of the El Portal apartment. And I think he did it subconsciously to get away from the chaos that we were all living in.
It was crazy.
Because he had 3 and I was 18. I had just graduated. So but him getting kicked out obviously forced me out, right? I think it was an easy way to get everyone to leave.
My parents were also getting
your parents were getting kicked out at the same time. So I had my financial aid for Shasta College. Thank God that I had that. I had got like $3,000 and ended up finding an apartment. It didn't allow dogs, so it was like a rush situation, and I had to find somewhere. And so, but it had a backyard. We got caught pretty quickly and ended up getting kicked out. And I don't know if we shared this already, but we built a little kennel out at your grandma's house for the dogs, and
we would go there every day.
Yeah,
and that's why when I hear people like, just again another side quest, but it's like you hear people getting rid of their dogs or they're moving.
Yeah, my dog was my freaking child, and I would do anything. We had no money.
I used a bunch of supplies all over my grandma's barn. I found somebody like to have a space. We built it on the side of a barn. It was outside completely. You remember that? I built that whole thing, little gate, and then Gretchen just kept getting out.
And I feel like she went through so much stress. Like I honestly feel like she was 13 when she passed away. She got diagnosed with cancer at 9, and I know some of it's genetic. She's a golden, but like I honestly feel like it might have had to do with the stress that she endured in her early years, of just, she went through a lot of stress. I
chained her with a 3/8 chain.
Thunderstorms, and she was terrified of thunder.
Heart.
I know.
I chained her to a T-post that I drove literally 6 feet into the ground with a fucking 3/8 chain, and somehow she got off that thing. Then I put her in a kennel, and shout out to everybody. Like, this is pretty much dog. I feel terrible about it, but like I put her in a kennel. It was for
a very short period of time.
I had to wire it shut. Do you remember that? Yeah. Because we just didn't know what to do.
And she got out. She nosed her way out, and her nose was swollen.
And then we called her Beaker.
Yeah. But, obviously, in hindsight, all of that was a terrible idea. And we actually were talking about this last night. Whenever I run, it's like she had the worst public anxiety where she would just bark at all the other dogs. So I never, she went on a lot of trips with us and stuff, but I really didn't walk her as much as she should have been walked.
Like our dogs now are all so well adjusted. Yeah. They're kennel trained.
But she endured so much for I don't know. She shaped me to who I am today. And also she shaped who our dogs are today. Like she built that foundation of a really good home for dogs, And every time I run, it's like I envision her being with me because she didn't get that time. And anyway, so I quit Little Caesars. I don't know. I was still going to Shasta College. I was working at PetSmart. I got sent to groomer school, and I just remember I never wanted to be a dog groomer. I was like, well, I guess I can do this, It's like, whatever, they want to send me. But I remember I was such a fragile human that
oh God, I would just
cry.
You.
I would come home and cry
because customers would be bitching at you, and then your boss would be bitching at you.
It was the culture. It was the corporate environment, and all the people that I worked with, as people, are really good people. I still chat with a lot of them. I'm friends with them on Facebook. They were all great people, but working with them in that toxic setup was not fun for me, And I remember it was I was expected to perform the impossible. So many dogs in a 4-hour shift when I was a bather, whether they were matted or not, and I had to take my lunch.
Yeah, how are you going to be you could do this?
Couldn't get overtime. Had to take my lunch. Had to do these matted, messed up dogs, and it was just pure anxiety.
Dude, that is just
pissy customers because no offense, but some dog pet parents are just freaking insane, including myself. I don't let anyone touch Trevor. He is off limits.
I go in, they're like, well, would you like to do the blueberries? Yes, do all of it.
And they better be getting a massage.
And when I pick up, they better have been an angel.
And you better lie to me and tell me that they did good. Yeah.
Exactly.
So that was yeah, so I went to grooming school, and I hated it, man. I hated grooming there. I really did. I think I ended up, when we bought the shop, we'll just go into a little bit of that and then we can end it. But we bought the shop, and then I was going to school because I wanted to be an animal trainer. I've always, like, Steve Irwin was always like, you know, a really big, like, I would see him on TV, and it touched my heart. And I'm like, I want to do that, but I don't know how. I have no idea. But then I think my sister told me about this school called Moore Park where you would go and be like an animal trainer. And I knew that being an animal trainer is like, that's kind of
at that point,
like
though,
a dolphin trainer at Marine World,
yeah.
you know, but I'm just like, I want to get my foot in the door for like exotic animals. And so, yeah, I was going to Moore Park. We bought the shop, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to go to Moore Park now. I was going to school to transfer to Moore Park. Yeah, to get my prerequisites through Shasta College. And then I decided, I was like, well, I'm just going to drop out because, you know, we're not going to be moving down to Southern California anymore. And at that time
And you hated college. You were zoology.
Zoology was different.
But
zoology was freaking hard, and like I was struggling. I never really tried in school, and I always did good with bare minimum try. But zoology was one that you actually did have to try in, and I wasn't used to that, and so it was a struggle. So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna cop out and ditch this class anyway. I took this really hard exam that I studied for forever, and then I never actually went back to see what I got on it. I probably got a C. I'm gonna guess I got a C on it.
How could you do that?
So
never know. Oops.
So
Moore Park.
Yeah.
You didn't go.
PetSmart grooming. I started to work. I was working for this older lady, like an animal caretaker for this older lady. I remember it was like back then she was willing to pay $15 an hour, which was a really big deal. And I'm like, yes,
under the table.
I hit it big, you know.
Sick. I remember.
So I was working for her. And then I was working at PetSmart.
Like, 2 more hours.
And I was going to school, but then I dropped out of school. And then PetSmart, I was only working a couple days a week because I was kind of like, I didn't want to like tell them I was done, you know. Oh, and then the shop, I was doing the books for the shop as well.
And that.
Yeah. Which the shop was a lot smaller, so it wasn't like a huge
we had like
ordeal.
3 employees.
Yeah.
Not 27.
Yeah. And then I kind of started slipping into a depression because I really wasn't fulfilling my full schedule. I had too much downtime at that point, you know, and with no purpose. I guess I was losing my purpose because I'm like, well, I'm not going to school anymore to do this. So then you were the one that was kind of like, dude, you got to figure something else out. Like, and you were the one that talked me into looking for a different job. And I ended up finding Kimberly's Grooming, which was a booth rental situation. And I actually really liked it so much better. I quit PetSmart. I went to the booth rental situation, and I worked at Kimberly's for a couple years, and it was just night and day different. The culture was so different. I could make my own schedule, and if I didn't want to take a lunch, I didn't have to take a lunch, and it just wasn't like
you work yourself to the bone, and no one told you.
Yeah, and I did do that, and that was bad. But I worked like 12-hour days.
Yeah, I remember that. You would just I'm like, you never take a lunch? How the fuck
but
do you
it
do
was
that?
like it was the culture. You know, there were no stupid toxic corporate rules where, you know, if you didn't ask the customer if they were happy with their experience, you know, you had no...
Just trying to turn a great employee into a hated... Like, I wrote down, you know, corporate structure turns great employees into angry humans.
Yeah.
Because it's like that kind of shit.
It's just a dog-eat-dog world.
You can't micromanage good... If you get good... You hire good people so they can tell you what to do, not so you can tell them what to do.
And you know what I freaking hate that stuck with me? And like I learned so much of what not to do, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of like my strength is like I'm an observer. So I always key in, even when I was a dog groomer, like how to avoid nicking a dog, how to avoid getting kicked out of a house, how to, you know, be a good business owner. For one, when someone apologizes to you because, I don't know, they got overtime on accident, you don't go, I'm sorry too. You know, like little toxic things like that.
Can you imagine? I would never speak to any.
Or my car was breaking down and it was smoking, my Escort. And then I'm like, called the manager. It was...
What?
And the manager was like,
trash.
just huffing and puffing that I was literally like 5 minutes late. But I was panicking because I'm like a people pleaser. Like, I'm going to be late. Oh my God.
And they use people like you up. right?
Yeah.
And like I've learned through that. Sorry, I'm all fucking teary because of Gretchen, but it's like I learned from that through you. Like when we get somebody who is like really like that, the last thing I want to do is make them feel any sort of guilt at all because I know how that feels.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that because guilt and shame are the easiest ways to manipulate someone, then you're a piece of crap. And you need to look at yourself in
and
the
as we
mirror.
grow our company, we have to be mindful of not, because we don't have that issue, but now we have to make sure that our leadership team also has that same
100%.
vision and can
'Cause
portray
I
that
was
to our
that
team.
scared kid too in my work, and people made me feel that way too.
God,
And that's
yeah.
the last thing I want to do.
Yeah,
But
or it's like
anywho.
I remember like I didn't ask a customer if they were satisfied, and then the customer was mad later, and it was like, oh, if she can't ask customers this, then she has no business going to grooming school.
And don't,
you know?
oh God. And don't get me wrong. Like if we had asked our team to ask if a customer was satisfied, I would hold
We
them
hold
up to
accountable,
that,
yeah.
but not with shame and guilt.
Yeah.
Oh, then she can't go to grooming. Oh, you can't. You shouldn't even be fixing cars. Or that's, like,
Yeah.
I'm sure I've done that to somebody.
Yeah, we're not perfect,
but,
but
I hope to not be that way.
But I do, and I think that it can easily happen, right, as we grow.
too.
And I love reflecting back on that because then
too.
it just keeps me
Don't ever forget
humble.
where you came from.
Yeah.
And also, never trust a leader without a limp.
Yeah. It's a good one.
I love that saying.
Yeah.
Nicole's got 2 prosthetic legs.
Shut up.
Hey, it's a
Yeah.
good thing. But
But that's pretty much like leading up until 2013. We bought the shop, and
back then it was, you posted something like, Nick bought this shop. And then,
my husband bought a shop. Yeah.
which is crazy.
And then because I really wasn't involved at all in the
No, and
beginning,
at that
I did the
point-
books behind the scenes. I never showed my face though.
And at that
I
point,
was,
it was so, like you said, it was odd for me to like bring anyone to it because it was still like,
it was like
not
you and your
mine.
dad, and then like one other person.
I had
you
no
know?
leadership. I had no like confidence. I was just like still that scared kid owning a shop.
Yeah.
Which you could be too, people.
But yeah, and honestly, like when you bought the shop and I was working at Kimberly's,
We needed the money too.
I knew grooming wasn't my forever job. Like I didn't hate it. I hated working at PetSmart. But when I worked at Kimberly's, I felt this
doable.
sense of independence, and it was like my thing. It was my business that I was running. My clients. It was just I was the one that everyone was talking. It was just a whole thing. And then
not. You didn't say this to the client.
but I knew that grooming wasn't my forever job, and I think back then, and I was just talking to my cousin because she owns a grooming salon now, and I was just talking about what her average like dog groom is, and it's way more than what it was back then. But back then it was pretty much like all cash in hand because we didn't accept cash.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
debit
without
cards.
you doing that for the first probably 5 years
Yeah.
of the shop, we wouldn't.
We
be a
were
shop.
terrible with money, but I was making
No, but
I was making
we
a
were
good
terrible
chunk
with
of
money,
cash.
but I wasn't making anything.
Yeah.
I was just running around with my fucking head cut off. For a while.
But I didn't hate working there. I actually really enjoyed it. But I knew it wasn't my forever thing. And then you would call me a lot in tears and just high anxiety, stress of all the shit that was happening at the shop. And then that's
God,
kind
I
of,
don't even want to talk about that.
yeah. And it was the most helpless feeling that I had, where you would just call me crying, and I was at the grooming salon and I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't be, I wanted the nurturer. I was like, I want to help you, but I can't,
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the decision that led into me retiring from grooming and then moving into the shop. The end.
Well, shit.
And by then we had 5 dogs. We went from 2 to 5 very quickly.
Yeah. We had a lot of stuff happened.
Trevor was our 5th dog. He's still our baby. He's like 11 now. His birthday's in a few weeks, but
We left him in a fucking shop.
he was abandoned in a shopping cart
abandoned as a puppy.
in PetSmart. And someone actually was already claimed him by the time I got to work that day. Like, oh, I'm going to bring him home. And anyway, she brought him home. She brought him back the next day because I guess her stepdad was like trying to abuse him or something, hated him. And then, and I didn't know he had the little short legs. I thought he was a German Shepherd. And I'm like, we don't have room for a big dog.
That's going to be a big dog.
Everyone, yeah. And I was like, well, I'll take him. She was going to take him to Haven.
So just to picture everything, Trevor is about, he's 50 pounds, but he's about 6 inches tall. Idiot.
He is very short with a very large head.
Yeah. But he has big paws.
Yeah. But the
the
person was going to take him to Haven that day. And I'm like, oh, I don't want him to have to go through that whole process of living in a shelter. So we were living in a home with a nice backyard and stuff. I'm like, we can just foster him. And I legitimately wanted just to foster him because I don't like German Shepherds that much. I don't have a soft spot for them, you know? And then they brought him back to the grooming salon and they're like, oh, look, he has little corgi legs. And I was like, I'm in. He's
God
mine.
damn it, I'm going to keep him forever. Yeah. And put him on all loaner cars and all over advertisements.
Yeah. Little Trev. Anyway, that's kind of my story. In
freaking beautiful.
Summary.
Dude.
I think that, you know, we touched on this earlier, but I feel like for a long time I was so ashamed and I had so much resentment towards my parents of like, and I didn't think that I would ever be able to be a leader because I was born and I had struggles and I'm a woman.
And you were quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I was. Oh, I was a quiet kid. I
had all these limited self-beliefs and I tried to take it out on my upbringing and like my parents doing me wrong but it's such a freaking blessing, man. Like everything that I went through, I am so, and honestly, like I think back on it a lot and the pain that I went through as a child. There's a story I tell you all the time about when I was at the Wind River gas station and my mom was trying to drop me off. My dad couldn't meet up right away. She was running late for work. So her and her boyfriend dropped me off at the Wind River gas station with my suitcase. And I didn't want to be left there. I was terrified. And I was just bawling, crying because she just forced me out of the car and then drove away. And then my dad got me like a little bit later. And
that makes me physically angry.
But like I think about all that hardship that I went through, you know, and
you use it as
gratitude, man. Like I can tap into gratitude so easily because
I love it.
Yeah, like
I was just talking with my mom about this.
Yeah.
For me, it's my diagnosis. Everything
that too,
changed.
man. Yeah.
Everything changed. And what most would look at as the worst thing in life is the greatest part of my life.
Yeah, for sure.
And you are great at that.
Mm-hmm.
So
it took me a long time. I lived in I lived in the victim mindset for a really long time up until I started reading books and hearing other people's stories and learning about the bitch voice that lives inside all of us, that victim mindset and the limited self-beliefs and
now you're a fucking badass that runs
shifting
2 shops, runs 6 miles on a fucking random Monday run. Like, holy shit. Like literally you're just a changed person. And I think that's why I wanted to do this, is just to get your story out there. I don't want to speak for myself. I don't think I'm that impressive at all, but I think you have
oh, stop.
Your story is incredible. And I think all the wisdom you shared here could help millions of people, but I doubt it'll get that far out. So hopefully people listen to it.
I just want people to know. And some people, it's all an opinion, right? Like some people have had it really, really hard. But
I'm not saying that they haven't.
No, but I'm saying that like no matter how hard you have it, just know like that you can literally do anything that you put your mind to. And our minds can be really dark, scary places. And that's kind of been my life's purpose these last several years of mastering that and really keeping the dark voice inside my head at bay, and having as many tools as possible to overcome those dark moments because
personal growth,
because they're in there and they don't go away. They're always going to be in there, but you have to learn how to control them.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
With that, we will end with our Nicole's Story podcast. I think that was really powerful.
Thank you.
A lot of stuff. You're welcome. I like you a little bit. I don't know. It's weird. Might be a little biased, but
let's just hope the camera's recording.
If you got this far and my camera was recording, I appreciate it. Look forward to, hopefully we're going to do weekly uploads. Might be bi-weekly. We did take a vacation last week for the first time in a long time. So that's why there was no upload. Plus I tried to do it beforehand, but I screwed it up. Thanks, Nicole, for telling your story because you're awesome.
My pleasure.
And, hopefully if you can change one person, it's worth it. If you can, check out All Dogs Thrive, which is our new nonprofit. You're going to see a lot of content from us soon. I'm kind of gearing up to do that, hopefully, if I can press record. And appreciate everyone listening.
Yes, thank you guys.
we'd like to thank Ralph's Crispy Crunchy Chicken for this episode.
Home of the 3-piece tendy.
People are going to get real sick of that.
They're going to be looking for Ralph's. They're going to Google it. Where's this chicken place?
How come their chicken isn't for sale?
It's make-believe, guys.
But anywho, again, thanks for listening. And continue being kind to everyone.
Live long and prosper. Deuces.